Okay, you can go ahead and call the order.
We'll call the special meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order at 5 p.m. In attendance is myself, Mike Ergo, Bob Carlson, Selectman, Nita Kincaid, Selectwoman, Christine Diaz, Admin Finance. So basically, this is just a special meeting to kind of talk about a couple of thoughts that came up. I just wanted to chat with the Selectmen about to see what there was. So obviously at the last meeting, we struggled to get to the point where the Board of Finance would have liked us to get. And I was thinking that we could take a different approach based on the Board of Finance's feedback on a couple of these items that we both had eliminated and hadn't eliminated in the budget. And when I looked at the things that were, obviously so many of the things that we eliminated were important, but there's a couple of things that came to mind, and we can talk about anything you want, but what my thought was that there's the software, which is $60,325. There's the radios for the fire company at $35,000, and there's per diem staffing in total for $110,000. What I was going to propose was that we appropriate, send for additional appropriation these items and not include them in the budget. By doing that, it gets us to a number that the Board of Finance is looking for, and it just brings us to sending them to a town meeting, which the Board of Finance basically told us that they favored us sending things for appropriation. So I wanted to talk to the board about your feeling on that, and if so, I would look to actually make a motion to move those to appropriation. Of course, the Board of Finance would have to approve them, and they would also have to go to a town meeting. What's that?
That would be the town meeting before the budget.
Yeah, so I have future town meeting on the agenda. So there's two things. So first of all, for this, I would look to send it to an actual town meeting, like that the people would vote at. We'd figure out a way to have that town meeting. But yes, it would be prior to the vote on the budget. I would look to try to figure out a time sometime in April, possibly to have that, if not in conjunction with the town meeting. I don't know. We can talk about that process, but the main thing is right now is to discuss first, how do you guys feel about sending these items as an additional appropriation before the Board of Finance? Go ahead, Bob.
So I think this is actually a good idea. Going into the meeting tonight, I was going to ask to remove the software again and possibly go to I don't know what you're going to do for appropriations, go to an appropriation anyway. I was going to ask to put the radios back in. I think that's important, and I was on the fence. I really wanted the second per diem, but I didn't know how to get it back in and still have the Board of Finance approve our budget. So if that's the way, if that's the best way we can do it, and I don't want to see the fire company left short on that, because I think I'm in favor of the second per diem. And I also, it sent chills down my spine when one of the people said, what if there's one of the young guys are in the house and the radio's not working, and God forbid something ever happened to one of those guys, and I would hate to have it on my conscience. So anything we can do to get those two back in and possibly put the software in front of the town, I'm all for. So I think this was actually a good idea.
Nita?
I think it's all right, but I actually think that we would have to do it in a town meeting after the budget. And we were not going to need it until after the budget, right? Some of those things.
So we could do it next fiscal. However, I would argue that we should put it forth first. If I were the fire company, which is really entity that's most affected by two of these things. I'm sure they would like to see that, taken up sooner than to make sure that if we're not going to include it in the budget, that it does make it forward. That's what I would suggest. And on the software side of things, the sooner we can start, the better on the software. So I'm anxious to get that implemented because that's going to take time. That's not just going to be flip of a switch. That's going to take 6 months. And by the way, I'll have the software company come in to the Board of Finance meeting for like a 5-minute overview of this software, because I think it's important that everyone understands what this software actually will do for the town. It's not a small amount of money. I understand that. So I hear what you're saying, Nita.
I think it's going to disrupt doing a clear path right to the budget and talking first and putting some of the money out earlier. I think it's going to be a problem, and people are going to say, we're doing two things very close together, all of which have to do with the money. I just feel uncomfortable about that idea, honestly. If you really both feel that it's good, but it's going to disrupt the kind of a meeting that we want to have in April for the budget. In order to have the May 3rd, we still have a good chance of getting to the May 3rd for the presentation to everybody. It just makes it, remember when we put other things in with this once before and it made people all confused? Remember that? That's the one where we can tell people that we are going to do these things and do it very early in the next quarter. I don't know how you both.
So, Anita, I agree with Mike on the way to go about it, but I didn't really say what the timing was. And I actually am more in favor of what you're thinking, that if these are actually in the budget and they get approved in the budget, then they wouldn't be able to be used until the budget was finalized and approved, which is for the next fiscal year anyway. And if the budget meeting, hearing and referendum are going to be in June, late May or June, then I don't see where it hurts to do it after I agree. I think it might be confusing, and I don't mind doing it after the budget is passed. I also don't mind letting the town know that that's what our intentions are. So there's nothing hidden, everything is in the open. But I do agree. I think we should concentrate on getting the budget approved and then go for the appropriation on these items.
So I'm concerned about, I agree. I don't disagree with your concerns about it. However, if I were one of the entities that were, and I am, because I'm the town, the town software is really important to me and to the town. There's never any guarantee as to the town approving something, and there's not any guarantee to the Board of Finance approving something to go to town meeting. So by not doing this now and not including it in the budget, we can say anything we want to say, but we're not really controlling as best as we could it actually happening. If we take it up now, I understand what you're saying. It is confusing. I know it's going to confuse people a little bit. I know that it will make it a little bit more complicated. I understand all that. But what I'm saying, let's just play out the timeline. Okay. So there's a couple ways we could go about this. It's the next item is the town meeting discussion, and we can talk about it, but we could call for a town meeting, and this town meeting could take place, within the next couple of, really in the next 3 weeks. So it's before, sure could. It could happen. We only need 7 days to do it after it's, approved. So Board of Finance, if we move the appropriation request forward tonight and Board of Finance approves it next Wednesday,
Mhm.
we could advertise and we could end up at a town meeting, the end of March. I mean, it's early enough that it stays away from the budget stuff. It is.
Can I ask this question? When is the current group that Christine works with? When do they charge up money to us?
OpenGov's invoice comes out in February,
That's right.
so we've paid for the current year.
So we will have them still working for us, correct?
Through February.
Through February. So that tells me something else too, and that gives us a chance to get, for that particular thing, instead of putting these things all together, for that particular thing, start working on that in the early fall. And
Yes and no, because with transitioning to this new financial software, we have to set everything up with the company
right,
and have it ready to go. If we're asking for budgets in January, we have to be ready,
for
boots
January.
on the ground in January.
Okay. Well, you
So-
don't think we could do that if we did it we would still be using, and then do it early?
I know, it's gonna be a long implementation period, and it's only Susan and I, as far as the town's people that are working with the company to get everything set up and established, and you have to set it up the right way so that your books are the right way moving
Right.
forward. That
So-
was something that the auditor talked to us about.
Yeah,
So-
I talked to him, the rep this week, and basically he said, it's about a 6-month implementation. So if what you're thinking about, Nita, and I'm following, I think what you're thinking is, well, at the very least, the software, maybe we push that off a little bit later or something like that. But really, like, we really need to approve that because, June to December is a 6-month time period. So if we wait till August or September or something like that to approve it, it doesn't give enough time to implement it for January 1st, which is the goal, which would be the goal. And then we kind of get away from OpenGov next year. So I think it does belong in this appropriation request. And I think, I think we should consider moving it forward and, bring it to the Board of Finance and bring it to a town meeting within the next couple of weeks.
Well, if we at least we bring it forward though, and to Mike's point, I actually was agreeing with you to stop, but I'm all about letting the taxpayer know what we're doing. And I'm also afraid that if we do a budget and then right after the budget, we come out with an appropriation, people might say, well, gee, what do you, why wasn't that in the budget? What are you doing? So by coming out before the budget, it's pretty transparent that this is what we're looking for. And I mean, if it goes through, it goes through. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But instead of confusing, and maybe it is a little confusing, but at the same token, it's not, it's letting the taxpayer know what our intentions are. I would hate to have us do the budget, have that pass, and then weeks later come back with a large appropriation and have them say, well, what are you doing? Why didn't you just put it in the budget? And then that's my feeling. So I changed my mind on that.
But I am seeing that having that in April or even late March, we are hurting what's going to happen when the budget comes up. People are going to be saying, what is just what you're saying at the other end of things? And that will be very unpleasant if they begin to think that we're trying to do that in order to, do something that should be in the budget.
But Nita, one of them's up front with the taxpayer, one of them's kind of like after the fact. And as a taxpayer, I don't think I'd want to say, oh, I just passed the budget, now look. You made the budget in such a way it would pass, and now you're gonna bring this to my attention after the budget?
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to alleviate the taxpayer from paying for this. I mean, like in a mill rate increase. And the other thing that I didn't mention is that, and we don't have the guidance yet from Treasury on this, but that rescue package that came out, the likelihood of us being able to fund two of these 3 items and get reimbursement for them is very likely based on the calls that I've had. It's not guaranteed yet, but the fact is, even though we're taking it from undesignated, the likelihood is because they would be unbudgeted expenses, we could get the money reimbursed through the federal government on these items if we do it this way.
Okay, and what I wanted to say to that, I was going to talk about that because of I know that we may have a good amount of stuff that we might get from the government right now, but then I think in the budget description, what we put out in April, we tell them that we have put some things aside because we believe that we will be getting support for these things. You put them out in front when we're in the meeting that is the one that we're preparing them for the budget. And it's right out there and people know that stuff is coming in, at least they watch TV and all of that. And I think it would be much cleaner, honestly. I mean, if the two of you are going to vote in favor of doing it the other way, of course I would live with it, but I think it's going to mess everything up. We've got to get a quarterly out there with stuff in it so that people really start getting interested in the budget. I
feel like if we communicate it, I really do see what you're saying, Nita, and I understand it, and it could go the way you're saying, but I kind of feel like as long as we communicate it properly, that I think there would be support for this. I mean, first of all, we know the fire company is going to support it, and they're a big contingent in town. I think it's worth doing it, and I think it's worth giving it a shot this way. I don't want to screw up the budget process. I don't, but I think this helps. I think it helps. I mean, I think it's gonna basically, if we do this, and I think the only last discussion we have is do we go for an allocation for both per diem or just the one extra that they asked for? If we went for both, I think it gets us to that number the Board of Finance wants us at. If we go for one, it gets us pretty darn close, along with the radios and the software. So,
well, it's only one per diem, Mike, because I already have one from last year, right? So it's one per diem and one in the radio.
Yeah, it was just, yes, it is only one. So all right, so we've talked it through. I think we all agree there's some risk here, but I think we all agree that the idea is good. It's just a matter of the timing. I would favor that we do move it forward, and I'm gonna motion that we approve an additional appropriation in the following manners, to be sent to the Board of Finance at their next meeting. Number one, C347 financial software, $60,325. Number two, C350 North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company radio replacement, $35,000. And number three, I think the best way to appropriate this is B2601, which would go to the fire company's operating in the amount of is it 65, Christine? For the one?
No, it would be, no, not 65.
50?
So 50, so if you're looking at the current funding level, it's 50 in that line. So you could say 55 to fund a second, or you could say 60. We were looking at a total number of 110 for next fiscal year for the two. So it was
55 and 55. So for 55 then.
Oh, 50. She was right, 50, because we already got, 50 would make sense, because it's we had already gone up to, in the budget, we already had, we had it up to 60 and then we took it out of the budget, right? So if you're gonna have two, I was thinking two at 55, not two at 60. So, unless I'm doing the math wrong, so we have
60 in the budget, you're saying?
We had 60 in the budget before, but we took that out of the budget, correct?
In the budget that I sent out, there is 60 in line B2614 for.
All right, so we need to go for 60 then, so we have two per diems at 55,000 each, so we go to 60,000 then.
So, Christine, I think it would be 55, isn't it?
We got to cover the $5,000 raise for the first one.
That's right.
Well, or you change the amount in the budget to 55. And you do 55 in the additional appropriation and 55 in the FY '22 budget.
What was it last year?
But they asked for 60 per person,
That's right.
well, per position, for a total of 120, and we cut it back to 110.
What was it?
So-
I'm sorry, when you said what was it last year, I couldn't hear you.
Last year, in the current year's budget, it is $50,000,
Yes,
50,
okay.
for one position. They asked for 120,000, saying it would be 60 per person. In the current draft of the budget you're working off of, it's in at 60,000. So if you're gonna do an additional appropriation and budget it, I would put 55 in each.
Okay,
That's just a,
so as I finish my motion, I'll be 55 from B to B 2601. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, but then we need to discuss that number again. I think it's wrong. I think it should be, I think it's 60, not 55. Because you gotta add 5,000 to last year's per diem to bring him up to 55. So it's 55 for this year's new per diem and 5,000 extra for last year's per diem. So it's a $60,000 increase. So we need to put $60,000 in that line.
Bob, I don't understand.
We had 50,000 last year, right? So if we decided we're gonna, for last year's budget, $50,000 for one per diem, correct? All right, and we wanted to have two per diems at a total of 110,000, which is $55,000 each. So we have to put 55,000 for the second per diem and an extra 5,000 for the first one to bring them up to 55. So that'd be a total of 60.
They
But in
wanted,
the budget for 22, you have 60 in for one, so that should be reduced to 55.
but they had asked for 60 for both of them,
They had asked for 60 per position.
per position. That was very specific.
So it's
So if the-
55 in the budget and 55 in the appropriation request.
Okay, that makes sense. All right,
Board
I
of
agree.
Selectmen
I agree.
To fund two positions each at 55, you would do an additional appropriation for 55, and you would change the budget for FY '22 also to 55.
Agreed.
That'll be our next, well, second to next action. We're going to make a change to the budget that we officially, we will discuss that. I don't know what you want to do, but we definitely are, if this is approved, we'll remove the software and we'll change the fire company number to get us new numbers for what we'll put forward to Board of Finance.
That makes sense. All right, so the motion's on the floor. And
Yep.
I'm done discussing at this point.
Nita, do you have any more discussion about it?
No, I have no more discussion about it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oh,
Passes 2-1.
I'd like to just say, and because of the timing that we are using it, not because of what you're doing, but because of the timing.
I understand. Okay, so the next order is to discuss a future town meeting. So there's two things I wanted to bring up for discussion. So obviously this appropriation is one of the things that will need to go to a town meeting. And I think we would try to have that town meeting as soon as possible. However, we don't know whether or not the Board of Finance will approve this or not. Okay, so that remains to be seen. I think it makes sense to me, but they have to make their own decision on that. There's another item that is important that we get approved, and what I'm thinking about is actually using the executive order, JJ, in order to do this at our next regular meeting, because I do not see it as controversial at all. But of course, who knows what's actually controversial, but it's our LoSup plan. We generally do that at our normal town meeting because last year we didn't have a normal town meeting. We didn't approve the LoSup plan. The reason this is urgent is that the paving plants have opened and some of this money that we get from the state, we would be using toward the paving jobs. And I don't want to be in a situation where we have to be put down a list and not be able to get our paving jobs done. So what I wanted to do was move to bring this to a Board of Selectmen's meeting with, like we've done just with a couple of other things in the past, and just get the LoSiP plan approved at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. Again, advertising it as a town meeting with the Board of Selectmen acting as the legislative body. Again, it's not anything that I think generally usually passes pretty easily at town meeting. It's not again, I don't think it's anything really controversial, but it is an urgent matter to make sure we can get that done. So I'd like to just do that at the next regular Board of Selectmen's meeting. Granted, if we were going to end up, if I knew for a fact that these appropriations were going to happen, and that we're definitely going to go to a town meeting towards the end of March or early April, I might not rush, but this is getting pretty close. So I don't want to hold off on this anymore. So
Mike, when were you going to go to the Board of Finance on the appropriations?
Wednesday.
All right, because then at our meetings, and then they're the ones that have to send it to town meeting, is that it?
They send it back to us and we send it to town meeting.
Okay, once it's approved. If they
Correct.
approve it. Right, got it.
So what I was gonna suggest with this was to send, basically, it would be one question for us at our next Board of Selectmen's meeting, which is on the 23rd, our regular meeting. Just shall the town of North Stonington approve the 5-year LoSiP capital improvement plan for fiscal 2021, 2025. I'd like to call that meeting for March 23rd at 6 p.m. just as part of our regular Board of Selectmen's meeting. So I make that motion to call that town meeting for next Tuesday, Tuesday the 23rd, rather.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. I mean, the public's going to be there anyway, so if it's run like a town meeting, everyone will have a chance to speak about it. So I'm fine.
Okay. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Hmm.
You're in favor, Nita?
Opposed, I said.
You're opposed to it?
Yes, she's opposed.
Right. Are we
Okay.
talking just about the LoSiP, or are we talking about the whole thing for the town?
Just the
meeting?
LoSiP.
Just the LoSiP.
That's okay. Sorry, I didn't understand you.
Okay. So you're in favor?
Aren't they both in the same town meeting that you're talking about?
No. What I'm saying is this LoSiP is something I want to try to get done like immediately. And by the time, timing wise, the other stuff will go to an actual town meeting where we'd have the public actually, there to vote. This is something where the Board of Selectmen can just, I don't see it as something controversial. It'll be like a town meeting. People can comment on it. We'll have it public and all that. And if the public for some reason doesn't like it, we'll listen to that feedback. But this just happens every year. It's a normal thing that's done
And
every
it's just, I'm in favor of that.
You're in favor? Okay. So 3-0-0 then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, as I already said, the town meeting we'll talk. I just wanted to have it on the agenda so we understood that was the plan on this appropriation thing. We'll have to figure out how to logistically do it. We will do it, pending the Board of Finance's reaction to the appropriations. And the final thing is the budget discussion. So tonight we just basically took action that would remove the software from the budget. And the radios were already out of the budget. So it's just the software. And that will get us down closer to what the Board of Finance was looking for. We also have, we have to reduce one revenue line because we were just made aware that there was a revenue line that normally came to the town, but it's actually going to go directly to the school now. So it's like $7,000, I think. Is that right, Christine?
Yes, it's not that the money is going directly to the school, it's just not being recognized. It's not going to be an actual deposit that comes in, it's gonna be an offset on their billing.
What line is
So
that in revenue?
It is in our intergovernmental revenues, A 3.23, it's that 7,200, that's itemized as
Oh,
E-rate.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw that. Yep, that makes sense. It's gonna go from 42.2 down to 30, yeah, it's gonna go down to 42.2, is that it?
yeah,
Got it.
3.22, right? I'm looking at it. 70, it was
I'm
7.
still working on the other things that we have to take out, so I can't do two
Yeah.
things at once.
So it was a deduct of $7,200, does that sound right?
Yeah, so, sorry, so yes, it will be a deduction, so the new line item amount will be 35,000.
Correct. Yep, got it.
So is there anything else that the board wanted to talk about on the budget as we have a few
Yeah,
minutes
Mike,
here?
I had just two reductions I want to suggest. One, which came out of comment at the last meeting, was on the rec department, and I'm totally in favor of rec, but the comment was that with all the rec programs that are figured that we've already budgeted for, some of those might not happen, especially in the early part of the year, but, so the person who mentioned it said there's a $4,000 line on B1601 for miscellaneous and new programs, and they felt that there'd probably be enough money left over from programs that we're already budgeted for that may not take off, that would more than cover that. So I would motion to knock that $4,000 out of the rec miscellaneous and new program budget.
What line? Do
It's 1601, B1601.
you want to reduce the line by 4,000?
Yes, because I think there'd be enough money in the other programs that may not happen. They may or may not, but there'd be leftover monies that we could cover that.
Any second on that? I'm not gonna, I'll second it.
Make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if we remove 4,000 from the expenditure side, we need to remove 4,000 from the revenue side. The revenue for recreation is more than the expenditures in that B1601. It's a 1-for-1 match. If we say that we're having 10 people participate in archery on the expenditure side, we have 10 people budgeted on the revenue side to pay for it.
I remove my motion then, because I'm not gonna, why bother? So I removed the motion.
Remove the
It's a wash,
second.
so.
Other ideas? You said, Bob, you had a couple?
One other one. So on B2604, this has come up a couple of times, discretionary overtime for the state troopers. We've got individual line items that we budgeted for the parade, Chicken Busso race, North Stone Education Foundation race, the fair and Halloween. So we budgeted these already, and to have $50,000 in that line item as discretionary overtime seems like a lot of money. I wouldn't mind cutting that at least down in half. I mean, unless something really big happens in town that we need to have the troopers work overtime, that seems like a big number to me, especially when we're covering all the special events in town. So I would motion that we move that from 50,000 down to 25,000.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
and that's all I had.
I said I too.
Yep, 300.
And we have to add the open gov back in, right?
Yes, thank you. Actually, no.
No, because we're
Because-
covered with it till
Well,
February.
because if we implement it by January, we don't have to pay OpenGov till February, and we won't need to pay OpenGov because we won't need it again, right, Christine?
But what if the
Correct.
new software doesn't get approved? Doesn't get appropriated?
Well, I'm gonna take the faith that it will.
That's going to be at the town meeting along with the firemen, right?
Yes.
Right, so if it doesn't get approved, there's an opportunity, if we have the town meeting early enough, to add it back in after the hearing. Because we're gonna have the town meeting on these appropriation, that's why I want to do it beforehand, even though I know it's, there's a risk there, Nita, I understand that, but if we do it beforehand, we'll have information that will help us make a decision on the budget. And we may need to add things back in if they don't appropriate it that way. So I'm comfortable not putting the OpenGov back in there.
Okay, that's fine. And wasn't there something else we just said we had to add back in?
We need to remove 5,000 from the per diem staff for the fire company.
That's right, go from 60 to 55. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Make
so does that need a motion for that?
Go ahead.
All right, so then I would motion that we deduct $5,000 from that line to bring it from 60 back to 55 on the first per diem that's already in the budget.
Did someone second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Need a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike,
Yes.
Mike, may I ask, so when we are preparing this town meeting, okay, you really need to let us know ASAP, because we really need to figure out whether we are going to be able to make the May 3rd date.
I don't see this affecting anything to do with the schedule for the budget. Nothing. This appropriation is totally separate. It will happen if the Board of Finance approves it. In my estimation, maybe the first week in April. That's the time when they're advertising the public hearing. The public hearing, according to our schedule for the public, is to take place on April 19th.
That's
So
correct.
we have a fair amount of time to have a town meeting that's before that's very clear about what we're doing. I think if we just communicate it, and it's really easy to communicate. Yeah.
And is the town meeting going to be a virtual meeting?
So the town hearing will be, well, the town hearing is the Board of Finance, right? So
Town
based on
meeting that you're talking about.
the town meeting is probably going to be I hope the town meeting is going to be a hybrid type of meeting with in-person and virtual attendance.
Okay, so there will be, at a place, we will all be together, and then other people can watch with the virtual, is what you're
The
saying?
town yes, that's what the goal would be. Yes. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
All right. We just have to figure out how to make it happen, but I think it's possible to do. So,
And the date, excuse me, the date again was how much? The date.
For what?
was
For what? For which
So
thing?
the annual, the finance hearing is scheduled for April 19th, and the town meeting is scheduled for May 3rd, but there has been no discussion of when the town meeting.
Is going to be.
Right.
For this
because-
purpose, yes, there's no discussion about yet
Special town.
the special town meeting, but it will likely be the beginning of April.
So we need to know that ASAP if you want to try and make this really work, because we will have the quarterly at people's door at the beginning of April, period.
So once the Board of Finance next Wednesday hears this, and we know that they've approved it, I can have it all figured out. Prior to that, I'll have a plan in place. It's just a matter of them approving to send this, and then of course us approving to send it to town meeting. I can figure all that out. So yes, Nita, next Wednesday night, we should be able to have a plan and get that and have that information.
And we'll show it to the Board of Finance and see what they like about it, which will determine somewhat what we do, correct?
I can certainly share the thoughts with the Board of Finance about how it would shake out, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Not
Bob?
that I like to do that.
One quick question. When we go to the special town meeting on the appropriations, we'll be talking about those as 3 separate votes, correct?
We could,
I mean,
Yeah.
we should. I mean, there's 3 different
Yeah.
things, they're 3 totally different things, so.
yep, I think so. Yeah, and I mean,
Firemen,
yep,
3 things. What are the 3 things?
the radios, the per diem firefighter, and the software.
Okay, that's the 3, okay.
All right, The only other thing on the budget, it was mentioned during public comment about the increase in insurance, Christine. You've got 8% in there.
I did a 7% on the medical insurance because that's what is recommended. Last year, we had a 5% increase, so the public comment recommendation of 3%, I do not think would be, would cover the town.
Well, I would at least reduce it to the 5% from last year.
Okay, I can do that, but I have to change every single line in the fringe calculation, so I will not have that number for today. I'm sorry, it's every single.
All right, leave it alone then, because I just, we don't know on that anyway, and I would like to get a number tonight so we can officially, I don't want to meet again, to officially move a number to the Board of Finance, because tonight we can move a number to the Board of Finance based on the decisions we made tonight. Do you guys have any other recommended changes, or?
No, I'm good.
At this point, no. Thank you.
Okay.
Why isn't this adding up? So I just want to confirm, it was removing 60,325 from line C 3.47, removing 25,000 from B 26.04, removing 5,000 from B 26.14, and removing 7,200 from A 3.23.
Correct, because the radios are already out.
And we're leaving in the, we are leaving in the new, are we leaving in the new, working to do this work?
No, we removed the software because it's the additional appropriation.
Okay, so it's in there and you're
Yes.
taking it out. Okay, got that. Okay, that's what I thought. All right, fine. Okay,
So we'll just wait for Christine to tackle the numbers. Take your time, Christine. And,
Once we do that, we're just gonna go to a vote and then adjourn, right?
yes, sir,
So I can get to my other meeting. Thank you.
you may.
And I'll see you at another meeting after that, I think, right?
You will.
you'll see me too. We do also have people listening to us, do we?
You do.
Yes, but there's no public comment on the agenda.
Pardon?
There's no public comment.
Oh, there's no public comment, okay.
Mm.
$. Don't understand. I'm having a $30 problem.
Yep,
And
take your time.
No, I literally have no idea.
Well, best I can do is offer a 5 or 10 minute recess, Christine, so you can take a little more time. So we'll take a 5-minute recess so everybody that wants to hang out can. Bob, I know you have another meeting. I'm sorry, but
That's right. If there's nothing's gonna change in the vote from what we talked about, then you guys can vote on you and Nita, correct?
we can.
Or do you need me to stick around? I can, if you want me to stick around, I'll just go to the other meeting that much later, that's all.
I would like it only because I just like if we have a
Yeah.
unanimous vote to move forward. It's,
Got it.
thank you. We'll come back at 5:50.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to bring us back from the recess. I don't know, Christine, if you were able to figure it out.
30 more seconds.
Nope, take your time. That's fine.
Stall the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nope, no problem. So what do we got?
So the new general government number is 5,231,414. The new capital number is 281,253.
Total
Mm.
and percentage?
Total is, total of all of them, including last year's education, is 21,015,354. No, that's not right. Hold on. What the heck, man? Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. We're good, we're good. I just need to type the different number in here.
Yep, take your time.
Okay, so the new number is 21,015,354, which is a 1.27% increase overall.
And ultimately, it's a reduction in the capital percentage-wise. And
Yes,
really, I
it's
mean, the only increase, the only thing that's pushing this increase is debt, mostly. I mean, a little bit of increase in operating. So we'll look for a motion to approve, to recommend 2022 budget to the Board of Finance with the government operating at $5,231,414, debt of $1,382,949, and capital of $281,253 to the Board of Finance for recommendation.
Second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you guys for meeting tonight. Really appreciate it. I'll see you in an
Thanks.
hour. Yep, bye.